welcome to Natural Grocers Nutrition Education presentation. We are so pleased today to introduce Jaime Rotner. She is a certified life coach. She has a BA in Childhood Development and MS in Family and Developmental Studies. Jaime is going to be talking to us today about ways to dynamic energy all day. Welcome, Jaime.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and get my content up here. All right, so thanks everyone for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend this next 30 minutes with me. As Janine said, my name is Jaime Rotner, and I am actually a certified health, life, and transformational coach. I, as mentioned, also teach at the local university in the Human Development and Family Studies department. And so I just want to welcome you to this talk, which is 4 ways to experience dynamic energy all day long. I'm going to do everything I can to make this incredibly valuable for you. But before we start on the content and the information and tips, I just wanted to share a bit of my story with you before we move forward and kind of let you know what led me here. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory in regards to my journey up until my 30s, and I'm now in my early 40s, I was a relatively healthy person, and I had, the occasional cold like everyone else did, and I generally felt, pretty good. But when I did hit my early 30s, I felt like I had just kind of gotten hit by a train. I had really never felt so awful in all of my life. And what appeared to be kind of this crash was actually something that was a very slow build over many years. And at that time, I didn't really have the awareness to understand that. And now in retrospect, I can see that, and that'll definitely lead us into what we'll be talking about today. So I was experiencing all sorts of stomach issues, gas, bloating, nausea, diarrhea. I was having a hard time eating most things. I had really significant ebbs and flows in my energy. I struggled with mild to moderate depression. I wasn't really getting the best sleep. I was having a hard time sleeping and really exercising and moving my body. And it got to the point where it was so bad, I was about 15 pounds underweight, and I was just eating bone broth to survive because everything I ate was causing me extreme pain. That led into joint issues and skin issues, and I was honestly just depressed. I was scared and just really anxious. And I was going to doctors high and low, and no one could figure out what was going on. And so I was just really frustrated. I was starting to feel desperate after months and months and months of tests and multiple doctors. And through all of that, of course, I was a mom. I had these 2 little cuties here who are now much older, but they were, obviously needing a lot of my care and attention. I was a wife, I was a college instructor, and I could barely get out of bed in the morning. So it was just having an effect on everyone in my life. And this lasted for a little over a year. So I finally got to the point one day, I don't really remember what the turning point was, but I just remember waking up and deciding, you know what, I gotta figure this out because I'm not gonna live the rest of my life like this. And that's when I started to heal, because I just decided to take things into my own hands, and I started really expanding my, or really opening my mind to other methods of healing. So I started visiting a naturopath that really helped rid me of a lot of infections I didn't even know existed in my body, and I healed through diet and supplements. And then I also had the amazing help of an acupuncturist, energy healer, and a physical therapist to really get my body back from the trauma, honestly, that my organs had endured over all those years. And then most importantly as well, I went into therapy to work on some of the emotional wounds and really things that I now recognize were affecting my health. So it was a slow process, but I rediscovered my health, I rediscovered my energy, and yes, at times it was very hard and spent lots of money, but I am proud to say that I am healthier than I've ever been, and just really amazed, at the ability that your body has to heal itself with the right support and information. And none of it involved, medications or surgery, and that felt really empowering. So I just feel really lucky. And that I can, get up in the morning and feel refreshed and be a good mom, a good wife, a good person, and just have energy to do all the things that make me happy and the things that are important. in my life. And so this led me to where I am today, because obviously as I was going through all this, I was doing lots of research and, really kind of exploring all the modalities in the world that are used to heal. And I just found myself devouring all the information I could. And over time, it kind of turned into, well, wow, maybe this is something that I actually do and be in service to others. I really enjoy my job as an instructor, but I wanted to add that piece to my life. But I couldn't figure out what it was. So I just was open for a couple of years. And then one day I was on social media of all things, and I saw a ad for being certified to be a health coach. And I was kind of like, what is that? And after a little bit of research, I quickly knew that it was exactly where I wanted to go. And within a month, I started a dual certification program, which I've since finished. And I am 2 weeks out from I've completed my transformational coaching certificate, as well as a mastery coaching certificate. So I feel like I am just, a new version of myself doing the wonderful work of coaching, and also, having grown tremendously as a person, having gone through these certification programs as well, because it kind of forces you to do some of that inner work. So I'm here today to share some what I think are really important tips and information on ways that you can implement some of the things that I've learned. So this is what we're going to be doing today. So we are going, let me figure out my little, there we go. Okay. This is kind of what's in store for today. So first, we're going to start with one of the main reasons that you're feeling depleted and experience low energy throughout your day. I think, having low energy or feeling the ebbs and flow of our energy is something that so many of us deal with, and oftentimes have a hard time pinpointing what's the root cause. There are many, but we're gonna touch on this one today because I think it's one of the most common. And then I'm going to go into 4 amazing things you can do for your energy, and hopefully see that skyrocket, that really are things that are at your fingertips that you can do. And then I'm also going to offer an amazing opportunity at the end, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and dig in. So why do I feel so tired? I'm sure many of us have asked ourselves that question often. Sometimes we know, like I didn't get a good night's sleep last night, but other times it might not be so clear. So one of the main things that some of you may know, some of you may not, is that one of the things that really robs our energy is being on what we call, as health coaches, the blood sugar roller coaster. So let's take a look at what is happening in our body based off the types of foods that we eat. So for example, foods containing lots of sugar usually don't contain healthy fibers, fats, or protein. And when that is the case, what we generally find is that it really creates this kind of increase in our blood sugar. And when we have fiber, fats, and protein, it slows down our digestion. It slows down the digestion of nutrients and allows for kind of a slow and steady energy. When we don't have those things there, it digests super quickly, like if we're eating a bagel, for example, or a cookie or some potato chips. Because it's not full of healthy fats, healthy proteins, and fibers, it digests quickly and our blood sugar shoots up really fast, like the top of a roller coaster. And when you're at the top of that roller coaster, that's when you generally feel that rush of energy that we often enjoy, right? So fiber, fat, protein really slows things down. So when those nutrients aren't present, it shoots up really fast. And hey, some of us do enjoy that feeling, that rush of energy. Our brains clicking, we're thinking of great ideas. Our body feels full of energy. But generally, when it's caused by this, it does not last. So when our body has this experience where our blood sugar shoots up really quickly, our brain is on alert. Your brain uses about 50% of your blood sugar at any given time. And so with that, we know that when we see this happen, our body just kind of freaks out a little bit. Our brain is completely on alert at this point. And so what we're finding is that our body thinks that it is an emergency, that we need to completely figure this out because something is going wrong. So what happens then? What does your body do? Well, your body increases a hormone called insulin to bring that blood sugar back down. And so when that blood sugar comes back down, then it goes way down because it's usually in secreting more insulin than you need because it's way too high. And that's when you experience that blood sugar crash that many of us have had. That's where you kind of feel spacey and jittery, or you feel like all of a sudden the energy is just completely sucked out of you. And so when that happens, then what we're finding is that our body looks to recover from that particular experience. And so what we find here is that your body tries to find something to kind of get it back into that equilibrium. And when we have that desire to get back into equilibrium, our body craves more sugar. And it's really interesting because our body is really doing the best it can to kind of bring us back, but it's generally craving something that's really not going to make us feel very good in the end, right? So usually we're going to crave those same salty foods or, the actual sugar, or usually coffee, things like that, that really will allow our blood sugar to go back up again. And so your body craving that croissant or craving that bagel or craving that cookie or that piece of chocolate is your body's way of saying it needs something to get back into balance. But what we're going to see is that cycle of up and down is just going to continue. And we're going to go through that process over and over again and just literally can't stop, craving constantly. The other thing that's actually really interesting that I want you to consider is that there might be many of you who are listening today that feel like, oh yes, I've kind of heard this before, right? I think we're seeing as a society, we're becoming, more of us are becoming more health conscious and understanding what sugar does. But one of the things that also goes along with this is what is called an emotional roller coaster ride. So when we're on this sugar-induced high, we're usually feeling good. We feel happy, we feel excited and energized. But when we're in that crash, all of a sudden we might unexplainably find ourselves snapping at our children, or yelling at our partner, or getting in an argument with a friend, or beating ourselves up in our mind. So we're finding that our moods also take a hit, our emotions also are affected, and they might be dip down into anger and frustration, or just be unstable. And sometimes we go, wow, why did I just scream at my son? Like, I don't even know where that came from, right? And so that is something that is a little known piece that we also know can happen as well, which is something that is sometimes just as influential as that energy depletion that we also experience. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful as far as just understanding what is going on as far as one of the main reasons why our energy might not be where we would like it to be, or why we see the ups and downs throughout the day. So now let's get into the actual strategies on how we can have more dynamic, stable energy throughout the day. So one of the very first things is water. Now, for some of you, you're like, oh, I've heard this before, but I want to reiterate it, and I want to really point out what it's actually doing for us. And for those of you that this is new, there's going to be lots of good, juicy stuff here. So water is really important because it does so many things for us. First of all, our body is made up of 55 to 60% water. So it needs a lot of water. Just by looking at those statistics, or percentages, I should say, it needs a lot of water just to function. And it definitely needs that plus more to function optimally. So when we have the water that we need, it actually helps balance our hormones. It actually balances our blood sugar, which will help reduce some of those cravings, more energy, right, as we just talked about. It maintains the fluid balance. But some of the key things too is that it actually helps carry nutrients to our cells. It is like a vehicle for our body to get what it needs, to have all the organs functioning at the highest level. Kidneys, for example, are a set of organs that are they're so dependent, I should say, on water. And kidneys do so much for us as far as flushing out toxins and waste, as well as the liver. So it really helps our organs function optimally. It regulates our body temperature, and it really helps with metabolism. So it helps keep our digestive system moving and utilizing the nutrients that we're getting from our foods and taking them to the right places. It also helps reduce inflammation. Inflammation is something so many of us here in the US experience, and that's a whole nother talk in itself. But water really does help reduce inflammation. And when we have inflammation in our body, that actually does decrease our energy because our body's having to work extra hard to get back to that equilibrium. So when we have all of this water, we see that our body is just working so much more optimally. And then, of course, our energy is going to be higher as well. So many amazing functions, and I could actually go on longer, but I think that covers it for now. So let's look at kind of how you could apply this in your life. So how much water should you strive for? The rule of thumb is half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 140 pounds, you're going to want to strive for about 70 ounces of water daily. Now, this is something that you have to take a step back and maybe observe yourself over a couple of days and see how much water you're actually taking in. Many people are surprised at how little water they drink because they're drinking liquids, but they're not drinking water. They're drinking coffee, they're drinking energy drinks, they're drinking tea, soda, wine, beer, as the day goes on. So really stepping back and looking at that. And if you find that you should be drinking 70 and you're drinking 10, when I work with clients, I help them really slowly implement more water into your day. Some of us go like the all-in mentality, like, I'm going to drink 70 ounces of water. And then we're like, oh my gosh, all I'm doing is drinking water and peeing, because that's what will happen in the beginning. Your body's overloaded. It's not used to all this water. So it's a good idea to really kind of take it slowly, and just however feels comfortable, whether it's 5 ounces every day, 5 ounces more every day, 10, that's something you kind of have to figure out on your own. But a slow and steady approach is really important so your body has time to adjust. The other things to think about is you may have to adjust your water ounces based off of things like how much caffeine and alcohol you drink, because that dehydrates you. So you might have to up it a bit. If you live in very humid climate or temperatures are high, like in the summer, it's important you take in more because you're sweating. And exercise, obviously, activity is another one as well. So something I usually just, advise my clients to do is if you like to ride your bicycle or you do aerobics classes or you're doing like Zumba, whatever it is, that you just take down 12 to 20 ounces before you exercise. And that can really help provide that extra hydration that you need before activity. And then, of course, you can supplement after as well. So those are a couple things to think about. And also just keeping water everywhere. Some people like to keep their cups or their jugs of water near them, but just make it easily accessible and kind of your go-to drink during the day, and then adding in those other ones. So when you are getting that hydration, you are going to feel more clear-headed and you're going to have more energy and find that your body functions a lot more efficiently. Quick story before we move on. I had one client who was kind of in that boat of only drinking about 5 ounces of water a day when we really stood back. And one of her main complaints was like she would hit this wall at 2 o'clock. All energy, she could just crawl into a ball and take a nap, and was having a really hard time having any kind of mental brain power, and was really struggling to get her tasks done at work. And so one of the things, amongst a couple others, that we looked at was water intake. And she kind of wasn't a believer that water would be that powerful. But we increased it over a couple of weeks until she was, I think, around 75 ounces. And she was amazed at how much more energy she did end up having in the afternoon. Said she was less likely to reach for that cup of coffee or go get the snacks in the vending machine, and that she was actually getting so much more done. And the reason she figured that out is on Friday, she would always write down a list of like what she got done, what she needed to do starting Monday. And her lists were so much shorter because she was being more productive in those afternoon hours when she'd find herself distracted and, busying herself with other tasks that require less mental energy. And so it also really helped just with her desire to work out and digestion. So it really can be exceptionally powerful. So something to kind of take stock and think about how you can implement that in your daily life. Okay, the second way to have energy is to discover how much protein and what type of protein is best for you. So if you remember, protein really helps slow down digestion and absorption of sugar, which helps balance it. So proteins have a more complex molecular structure, so it takes longer for your digestive system to work and break it down. And so when you consume protein alongside carbohydrates or more simple molecular structures, foods with simpler molecular structures, it slows down digestion a lot more. And then that lessens the frequency of that blood sugar roller coaster we talked about. One of the things that's really important, and this is something that I really strongly believe in as far as your nutrition is concerned, is that there's a reason there's so many different dietary theories out there. There's hundreds, and that's because there's no one way to eat for everyone. Everybody's body is unique. And so what's really important is to become intuitive and figure out what your body functions best off of. And so one of those things is looking at how much protein your body would like. Because when we get too little, we're more tired, we have more lethargy, we're spacey, we're jittery, we're ungrounded, unfocused, we crave sugar. And so it's important to really discover how much you need and what types. Because what's good for me might not necessarily be good for you. And what was good for me at 20 might not be what serves me best when I'm 42. So paying attention to that is really important. So part of what I do is just help people become a lot more aware of how their body responds to what they put in their body. So your body is the most powerful research lab. It tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And so one of the things that I do that's actually a really kind of, I think, fun experiment is called the 4-day energy experiment. And so ultimately, in a quick nutshell, you basically try out different proteins at different meals and take notes on how you're feeling each day. So you can do meals where you have no protein, meals where you have animal proteins, meals where you have plant proteins, and see how you feel. What's often interesting is that people discover that, wow, I do so much better off of plant proteins than I thought, or when I eat pork, I feel awful, and chicken, I feel great. So it's about figuring out which proteins make you feel the best. And sometimes what you need in the morning is different, than what you need in the evening. So that's something that's a really good, easy one that you can try. And trial and error is definitely a really important part of the process, but just really paying attention to those signals is going to be super important. Okay, the next one is sleep. So again, I don't think me telling you get sleep is really going to be a huge surprise, but I'm hoping to really shed some light on how poor sleep affects you and some of the tips to try and improve that body's ability to sleep. So when we're not getting enough sleep, we actually produce a hormone called ghrelin, and it actually compels us to gain nourishment. And it really plays on our pleasure receptors in our brain, which actually increases those comfort cravings. So I'm sure you can think of examples of days that when you're tired, you find yourself grabbing those foods that are not the best for you. But also when we're tired, oh, sorry about that. When we're tired, it also influences our decision making, right? So when we're not so energized and our brain's not so clear, we don't make good choices generally with our food, with what we're drinking. And oftentimes we also choose foods that we think is going to give us that boost. And oftentimes those foods are the ones filled with sugar and ingredients that aren't so good for us and will put us on that blood sugar roller coaster. So that's kind of a few ways that it affects us. And one of the things that we obviously have to take a step back and look at is what affects how well we're sleeping. Again, we could do a whole nother separate talk on this, but there's definitely a couple, primary suspects as far as negative effects on sleep. A couple are eating late at night. Your body should be winding down to sleep, detox, and restore. You shouldn't be digesting food while you're sleeping. So That's why there's generally a rule of thumb to, eat your last meal by 5 or 6 o'clock. So your body has plenty of time to digest and get ready for that rest and restoration of the body at night. Doing brain stimulating work before bed, being in front of screens, drinking caffeine or alcohol after 3 p.m., to name a few. So one of the things that's important to think about is, again, what do I do leading up to bed? Especially the nights I wake up, or the mornings when I wake up and go, gosh, I woke up a million times, or I had a hard time falling asleep. Really looking at what you're doing leading up to bed and see what, you could be able to identify. And really then from that point is working on shifting your bedtime routine. So it's really difficult for our brain to shut down fast enough to allow for sleep, or deep restorative sleep, if we're working right up till bed, or we're on our phone right up until bed, or we're drinking a glass of wine right up until bed. Our body's in this kind of overstimulated mode. So it's really important to give the time it needs to settle into that. And so one of the things that I have done with clients is really figure out what's negatively affecting your sleep, but then maybe trying to remove some of those activities that are negatively affecting them and replacing them with ones that allow your body to relax, like reading, journaling, stretching, maybe it's a warm shower, bath, meditating, whatever it is that you like doing that allows your system to get physically and psychologically ready for sleep. I like to call this the power down hour. So if you want to be asleep by 10:30, start that hour at 9:30. Or if you want to start slow and do a 30-minute, cool, that works just as well. And then you can slowly add in the time. But the other thing is just to really honor your experience of sleeping. I think we take it for granted. We think we don't need it. I have too much to do. But just imagine if you actually got 8 hours of sleep every night and were well rested, how much more you'd actually get done in the time that you have versus how distracted and foggy we are. We're not as productive. We're not as focused. And so it's really something that is just so vital. And honoring the necessity of it is a really big reframe that can help with your kind of motivation to help really, shift your routine before sleep. Okay, the fourth and final way is something that we don't always think about, but is what I like to call joy infusion. So we often underestimate how important it is to have fun and experience happiness and joy in our life. So it's always a good question to ask, what brings you joy? Do you know what brings you joy? Are you aware of what makes you happy? And if you are, amazing. If not, this might be a good place to kind of stop and reflect. But when we think about that, we think about, I know my mind goes instantly to things that I love doing or people I love spending time with. And when you think about those experiences or those people, I know I am always buzzing and full of energy when I take the time to do things that make me happy. I love going to concerts. I miss them and I'm excited to go to one this summer. But I'm on a high for like days after that because it's something that I absolutely love and just makes me so deeply happy, right? And so I think one of the things that many of us struggle with is making time for these things. We're so busy and we're fulfilling our days with all these obligations that we put off all the things that make us feel good, and we fill our time with activities that aren't always fun. And yes, there's obviously the things we have to do, right? Those tasks that life, causes us to do, but we often do a lot of things based off of shoulds and things that don't really express our best self. And so it's important to ask yourself, are you setting it up so people are always pulling on you, that your time is full, but you're not really filling it with things that you want? And many of us set ourselves up to not be joyful because we believe we're obligated to others, or we need to be doing this thing and we need to be doing that. But you have the power to change that. The challenge is to create that freedom and space for this to happen. And this really just involves valuing yourself and monitoring where you put your time. So I would always do this with my clients. I would ask them to really think about what it is they enjoy doing, minor to major, right? Maybe we can't take that trip to Greece, but what is something that we might be able to carve out 10 minutes in our day that's going to put a smile on our face? And focus on those things a little bit more than, I got to solve this problem or do these 85 things today. If we allow ourselves to infuse that throughout our day, it makes those other things maybe even more enjoyable or more easy to manage and work through. So you're only going to be able to do this if you don't settle for anything less, right? You know, living in joy can really help create amazingly positive changes in your life because you'll be fueled with that energy and that vibrance that we oftentimes deprive ourselves of, that we don't need to be doing. Okay, so I really hope that you found some value in this today. The issue I often see after talks like this is that individuals are excited about all the information and feel inspired, but then aren't really confident with their ability to implement the steps, even if they feel really straightforward, like drinking more water, getting to bed a little bit earlier, or doing that bedtime routine. And that's because just because we know what we should do, it doesn't always mean that we do it. Knowing information for many of us is not enough to motivate us into action. We often are in what we call a high fact diet. We have so much information at our fingertips, it's almost overwhelming, right? But how many of us are still stuck in these places that we wish we could get out of, right? And it's because we get into these patterns and repeat these behaviors because many of them are habitual, and we don't really quite know what to do to move through those. And so there's a couple of ingredients that are generally missing, which is why we tend to stay stuck. So we might go, okay, I'm going to drink 75 ounces of water and start strong and go, okay, this time I'm going to do it. And then after a week, we fizzle out and we are right back to where we were before. And so again, it's not because we are missing the information, it's because we're missing the right ingredients to make it all happen. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly here. So the first is the right system. So this is obviously the information, but doing it in a way that actually is going to be effective and work, and not just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall kind of piecemeal. The other is the right support, someone that's going to encourage you to get it done, right? Support you on a regular basis. And the accountability piece, somebody that's going to hold us accountable, hold us to our word, give us that kick in the butt, right, that we need. It's kind of like when we go to say, oh, we're going to go to this yoga class. And if we're going with a friend, we're much more likely to show up than if we're going by ourselves. We might find some excuse. I'm too busy. I have these things to do. So somebody that's really going to hold us accountable is really, really important. And so this is actually a very brief snippet of what coaching really is in a nutshell. Someone who really can help you create major transformations in your life that I've seen happen, extraordinary results. But they do require the system, the support, and the accountability for many people. They require that mentorship. And so what I have done is I've actually created a session called, get this moving here, free Elevate Your Energy session. So this is a session that's going to be complimentary. It's 60 minutes, completely you and I virtually, which will really help create a sense of clarity about the level of energy you want. What is it that you want in and around your health in regard to energy? And sometimes there's more too. What's stopping you? What brings you to this conversation? What have you tried? What's not working? What is getting in your way, right? And then really being able to have concrete ideas and actions of what you can do moving forward. So I can pretty much guarantee that you would walk away from this conversation with at least one major aha from your unique self in kind of how to break out of that rut of low energy. So I just want to invite you to open up to the possibility that this time can be different, that you have not tried everything. That even if there's people here today that are like, I'm pretty healthy and I know my stuff, there might be something that you're missing, that really could make it that much better. And this is an opportunity to just more really get curious about how healthy you actually can be. And what makes coaching unique is that what we do is we focus on what you get to do rather than what you don't. So suffering to heal is not effective. That's why we often go back in the other direction. And it just doesn't make sense. So when I work with clients, I want to inspire you to reclaim your health in a way that's fun, that's sustainable, that's natural, that is long lasting. And it's not going to be a brief breakthrough, or I call it a fake through, right? Where it's like, I'm good for a month and then I'm right back to where I started. And that's generally because we have that support and that accountability and the system that really is the difference between staying stuck and breaking out of that rut. So if you're ready for that kind of support, I just encourage you to reach out. I'm going to forward it into my next slide here that has my contact information. I am a virtual coach, so I can definitely work with anybody, anywhere. So my website's there, my email, and my cell number is on there as well. And I have some slots open at the following weeks after this session. So I am more than happy and would really look forward to those of you who are ready for this type of clarity and transformation. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you taking this time for yourself. And I hope it was valuable and that I hear from some of you soon.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was just great information. And be sure to take down Jamie's information. That sounds like a great way to start your path on more energy with Jamie. So thank you everyone for watching, and please be sure to subscribe to Natural Grocers channel and watch for more presentations in the future from Natural Grocers. Thank you.
Thank you.